they'll just listen to what he's got to say. So I'm back again. And what happened is the computer started adding on to what I was saying, with more of what I was saying. So the topic is don't do the math, which is basically a recommendation to you, to anyone, to spend some time noticing how things arise without interpreting, without doing anything with it, without adding any comment to it, without evaluating it, judging it, dismissing it, doing away with it. Even if it's something that's very difficult or painful, I would say give it some time before you get dismissive or explain why it's there or why it shouldn't be there or take drugs. And the other one is, besides don't add, don't subtract, don't divide, don't separate yourself from whatever is happening. Don't divide, don't do any mathematics at all. We're missing so much by doing it, by pushing, by pulling, by ignoring, and so on. We're actually missing our life as it is being presented to us. The reason this is challenging is quite often the life, that aspect of our life that is being presented to us just doesn't look like it should be happening. We don't deserve this. How many times have you said that to yourself or had someone say it to you? You don't deserve that. Well, if it's coming to you, you probably do deserve it. When I say deserve, I don't mean you've done something that you're, getting your just desserts. I'm not talking about that. That's more adding. I'm just saying that causes and conditions are operating completely without your permission. Then they are operating on very, very subtle levels, or should I say subtle levels. They're operating little tiny particles and pieces that are probably not particles and pieces in actuality, are happening in such a way that it's confounding to our self-centeredness, to our ego. It's confounding to that. We feel like we should be able to, the way we're looking at it, we should be able to figure this out. We should be able to stop this, start that. We should get more of this, less of that. And we should separate ourselves from this or that or the other thing. So when I say as a practitioner, if you're a meditator, then listen to what I'm saying. If you're not a meditator, do whatever you want to do. You probably won't even listen to the rest of this talk. But if you're interested in sharpening, in making that awareness very, very sharp, then don't do anything with what is arising other than just observe, just look at it. Just see what arises. You won't be able to help but do some adding, but you can minimize it by just being very, very observant and notice the way you keep wanting to sneak up on something and push it down, or sneak up and increase something or explain something in a very subtle situation in some ways. And in other ways, it's totally outlandishly obvious. If you're sitting here or over there and someone says or does anything and you get upset, you are adding. You're adding to it. Because what happens and your response are a lot flatter than that in the first moment, in the first milliseconds. Because there's much more just flat terrain there. But what happens is something gets triggered that has not been properly dealt with. Sometimes you could call it past karma. You could call it causes and conditions that you've stuffed. Something that happened to you when you were 4 years old, 8 years old, 10 years old, 300 years old. It doesn't matter. But some other situation is being triggered by this. This happens and triggers that. And then there's a reaction, as they say, mountain out of a molehill kind of thing. Probably are not going to be able to stop those initially. You can't just look at it and say, well, I just won't do that anymore. This doesn't work. The presumption around the self-control is sometimes overwhelming. What you do have a lot of say-so over is awareness. You can actually increase, for lack of a better word, you can increase your awareness in such a way, like my awareness of where my handkerchief is at. Pardon me. You can increase the awareness. The awareness just increases if you're not doing anything with it. The downside of that is that awareness could make it more painful, more difficult, and of course, which of course stimulates more of a desire to want to do something, want to stop that person, that thing, that situation, or to want to change it in such a way that we understand it in such a way that we're, well, we know we got this coming, so we're just going to have to live with it. We'll just put up with it. We'll just go along with it. I'll just do the best I can. All the chatter, 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 chatter. Not helpful in a fundamental way. It might give you a little bit of relief, but if you are a serious meditator, if you're sincere about this, please don't look for relief. Look for the truth. You can get relief some other time. And when I say that, I'm also saying in the same breath that if things get really difficult for you, if it gets really difficult, then you would know if you need to maybe get up off the cushion, maybe walk out of a room with someone that you would like to be able to just be there with them and have that negativity and handle that negativity by not being reactive. But you can sense that you're not going to be able to do it. Excuse yourself. Don't fight with them. Don't blame them. Don't engage on some kind of level of warfare. Excuse yourself. Say, I'll be back pretty quick. I've got something I have to take care of, even if that's only going out behind a tree somewhere and pounding your head on the tree. You know what I'm talking about. I mean, sometimes it just gets so intense that we just don't want to. We have a sense that there's intensity is arising, and we have to take it somewhere else so we don't harm our relationships with someone that we're trying very hard to work with or get along with or not arm wrestle with. Don't do the math. And of course, the other thing is you have to, when I say that, this begins by seeing how much math you do. Something happens. Something happening. We add on to that. We add something to that. We put our comment, our commentary, our 2 cents worth, however you want to say it. And it seems to be necessary if you're going to live in this world without the suffering increasing as you go along, without increasing your own suffering, without increasing the suffering of those that are close to you. It seems to be very necessary to witness something occurring with nothing extra. Don't add. And if you do add, if something happens and you think that shouldn't happen, or I don't deserve this, or what the hell do they think they're doing? Or don't they realize what I'm saying or doing? These little discursive flashes in the pan that propel us. It's just like kicking the wheel. It's just like, being on all of us, I'm sure, have been on in the playground, a merry-go-round where you have to keep it going. You have to push the wheel and keep that going. It's that kind of a thing. We just keep kicking the wheel, keep things spinning, keep it turning. There's some kind of a thing on the screen there. I don't know what it is, but I think you need to push the red button, and then you need to do what Kevin said, which is get ad blocker. I didn't think Macs did this. I thought that was just PCs that gave you a lot of fits. Macs do. I'm trying not to add. Not working. And that being said, this isn't something you can accomplish and get a gold star for, where suddenly you're this clear person who is completely in a state of constant, so much equanimity that people are just overwhelmed by your presence. talking about that. I'm just saying, I'd say it's a practice. It's something you work with. You notice that when things occur, instead of making no response at all, we have a response. We don't like it. We disagree with it, or it should be, or it shouldn't be. It seems to me that only by having an awareness practice, sitting practice of meditation, sitting down, shikantaza, or whatever your practice is, sit down and strengthen the seeing part of our lives. That part which just hears, smells, tastes, touches, tastes, thinks. Just the very simple part of that, like was brought up in the meditation instruction this evening. Questions at this point? Since you.
Is it possible to stay with what first arises?
I think it's possible to be with the texture and the quality of anything that's arising. As soon as that arises, and something else comes along. But if we do anything with what arises, then we miss everything else that is beginning, including that. We miss that. That's actually our life that's arising. It's you could say, your karma. You could say your life. You're just the genuineness of your life. If you do anything with it, then we start to shut down and things start to go in another direction, usually circular. If we're just with what arises, then things start to open up and we actually go forward in our life.
Hearing you say texture again there reminds me that during the meditation instructions tonight, you went into texture.
I did.
More than you usually do, but I still feel like I'd like to hear more about.
So I can say something about texture, and but did you have something else about that?
I can after.
Huh? Okay, so the idea with texture is the word texture works in any one of the sense consciousnesses, including the mind. You can have thoughts that are very jagged and rough and are kind of abrasive. You can have a texture, a surface that is very smooth and flowing. Even something that is very uneven can still be flowing, like water. Water tends to have a very interesting movement pattern to it, like clouds do also. So whatever is moving in any one of the six sense fields, just see if you can see, just register just the texture, the very simple first thought, as a Trungpa Rinpoche used to say, first thought, best thought, in order to help us stay in the texture of the thought, rather than jump into the elaboration or the judgment or the condemnation or it's too much commentary, too much explanation about the thought. You actually abandon the thought and go into some kind of thinking process that is activated by hope and fear. Whereas in sound, we just hear texture. Like when we chant the sutras, we have the drum beat and the cadence of the drum, and that slowly starts to increase. There's a texture to that. There's a texture to someone's voice when you're sitting looking at someone and they're having a conversation. You're talking about there may be something that has happened to them, something in their life that's going on. Don't miss the texture. The very texture, the tone, the quality, whether their voice is going up in pitch or down in pitch, the spaces between their words, and include that with what they're saying. I'm really feeling sad. My aunt, whom I was very, very close to. Notice that repetition. Notice very close to. Goes down. I'm not saying take that and analyze that and say, oh, this person must be a Gemini, or this person must be depressed because their sentences keep going downhill. I'm not saying there might not be something to that, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm actually talking about watching a person's face, watching their body language as they shift positions. Notice when they shift positions, if it's a particular phrase. Notice that texture of movement. Notice the texture of the sound of their voice. And at the same time, be registering what they're actually saying, the content of it. And to do that allows us to be much more present, be actually in the room without a lot of thinking about it, of what we should do, what we shouldn't do, if you're actually including all of your sense fields when you're listening to someone, you'll know that this makes ego nervous, because ego doesn't want to take its eyes off from what the person is saying, so you can make sure you say the right thing back. What if they finished their sentence and you were lost? Would that be so bad to not know what the hell to say to this person who just lost someone that was very close to them? It may be the very best thing you could do, rather than come up with some kind of cute saying like, "I'm so sorry for your loss." There again, I'm not going to go that direction and say you shouldn't say that. But if it comes out of your presence with the person, you're actually, maybe you're not touching them necessarily, but you're actually feeling the pulse of their life as they talk, as the tone of their voice, as they express themselves, maybe as they move their hands, maybe as they run their words together, maybe their words start to waver a little bit, they start to become sad about something. Maybe your own emotions are triggered. But we tend to we have an idea about how things should be, and if things start to go in a direction that is contrary to that, we get a little nervous, because then we're concerned about what people think about what we're thinking, or what people are thinking about what we're thinking about what they're thinking, and it gets all very insincere. The attitude may be to be sincere, but the insincerity of it tends to get quite rich. More about that.
Raw sense data, would that almost be a synonym for texture?
That raw sense data is actually thinking about what I've said rather than what I said. So it's not incorrect. It's just that your particular style is a very conceptual, intellectual, as you know. And I'm not saying to do away with that. It's not about correcting Jeff and say, if we can only get Jeff to just do this. And I'm just saying that what you're saying there, just include the senses. Stay in the mind, let the mind chatter all at once, but don't forget the color of things, yellow and red. There's nothing you can think about that. The conceptual mind, other than say red, flowers, but the mind probably isn't going to do that because it's too busy listening to what someone is saying. So you stay and you look at them, and if they're wearing a gray shirt, if they're wearing a black shirt, if they're wearing a red shirt, stay in that color red, stay in their body language. So it's not just raw sense data. That's is a concept about it. If you're in that situation, you won't have that word for it necessarily. You may, 15 minutes later, you may look back on it and say, that was kind of like raw sense data. But even that is a little bit too chilly for what I'm talking about. I don't mean chili con carne. I mean cool. So it's the actual feeling of it is very rich and very warm, and you're actually there with your with the senses, the sense of smell, sense of taste, even being aware that there's not much happening in the sense of smell. It's still awareness. But to actually take a tour of those senses, stay in those senses. You can practice it here on the cushion. You can sit and you can go to the sense of taste, sense of touch, sense of smell, sense of hearing. You can just move through those and see this is all it's your world. And yet quite often we're ignoring gravity. We might think about it once every 3 weeks, or when you hear me say something about it. We're ignoring the We actually have weight, and when we step down off from something, that we have to actually stop the whole weight of your body from going down into the carpeting through balance. We just so much take that for granted. But if gravity vanished, you'd be up a creek. Well, more than that. You'd be without a creek. Yes.
Is what first arises positionless?
That's a way of talking about it, yes. It doesn't really have a position of plus or minus. And it's not even neutral, because that's a position. So it could be at either end of the spectrum, but it would be choiceless. When I say choiceless, I'm just saying it's just what it is without any description leading up to it. More?
I had asked a similar question yesterday, how to stay with what first arises, and you had said something like, don't stay with it, but don't leave it.
Yeah. You don't have to stay with something if you haven't left it. Staying with something would indicate that you're leaving it. We're just mixing up words here, but it's the idea of the way to stay with something is to see what it consists of. Look at the particles of that. Look at the texture of someone's clothing. Look at the shape of someone's neckline. Look at if they're wearing earrings. Look at them, not with the idea of some kind of appreciation of them necessarily, although it could be that. If you do that, you notice that everything is completely unique. Everything is completely. The other word is completely new. It's just completely fresh and new all the time. Nothing is ever repeated. If you think it is, you're wrong. Notice how I laugh. I've never done that before. Or have I? I'm asking you, have I ever laughed before? Why does it take so long to answer that?
I don't know.
Because you're not sure what I'm asking you. I don't know either. That's why you don't know. More. Yes. Are you done?
Yeah.
William Murray asks, what is equanimity?
Should look it up. Balance. Balance. In order to understand balance, we have to understand things that are out of whack or out of balance. And so these teachings are pointing to everything being in balance, that there's really nothing to correct. There's nothing to fix, nothing to repair, which doesn't mean there's some kind of ideal thing going on. Is that the end of his question? I think to say a little bit more about that, I think that through clarity, through seeing what is happening, we realize that there's that everything is balanced. If we wanted to apply that word or that understanding that everything is, if it's not balanced, it's trying to get balanced. Things don't stay out of balance long. We're not talking about that ideal. It's so wonderful. Everything is so balanced. I'm not talking about that. We're talking about warfare. We're talking about crime. We're talking about intense negative feelings. Balance, 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 yes.
You'd said a few minutes ago, please don't look for relief, look for the truth.
Yes.
Are you saying that the truth can't look like relief?
I don't know. Maybe. You ask me that or somebody else?
No, I'm asking.
I don't know. Maybe.
Is it the search if we intend to look for, is there a difference between looking for relief and looking for the truth in terms of searching when we go to the cushion?
You're trying to trick me. Paraphrase your question.
I'm reflecting a bit on the texture of how you said that phrase earlier. Please don't look for relief, look for the truth.
So looking for relief is, we can get it, but then it goes away, and then we have to get it again. And we're trying to get away from something that we should look at and see what it actually is. So if you're having difficulty with some aspect of your life, whether it's you or your relationship, then I would say stay there and look, try to see what it is, try to see what it fundamentally is. Because looking for relief would be more like covering up what is there. You can get temporary relief. Aspirin does pretty good. Drugs can do that. Quite often that's people who live their whole life just trying to get away from things. And then the next life comes, they're born again, and they do the same thing again. And what's being suggested here is don't do that. But then again, I don't know what it's like to be you or anyone else who may be listening or anyone here in the Zendo, but don't cave completely. If you have to get some relief, then go ahead. I mean, only you really know, but don't just make it a thing that you're always going to just get relief from everything. Anytime you're in any kind of pain at all, you want out of it. That's what this particular situation is about, is to get you or anybody who comes in this room to change your allegiance over from trying to feel good, trying to be get rid of negativity, over to seeing what is fundamentally true, what is behind all that negativity. Let's look really deeply into this. That's what these cushions are in this room, while you have a blank wall to look at, so that you can actually practice looking. So you get very good at seeing, very good at awareness. So when you run into, when an emotional tsunami comes in your life 3 months down the road, 6 months, that emotional tsunami is running into a whole lot of awareness. So you can see it. You can see it's like being able to look at a tornado. You see everything flying through the air, your thought patterns and all of the other ideas and suppositions and hopes and fears are flying all over the place. But you're not doing much of anything, except, I'm not saying you wouldn't run, maybe you would, but it would be out of awareness rather than out of some kind of fear. Tammy?
Okay, so when you say, you said earlier, I feel like you said if anger is rising, that's at. Did you say something?
No.
No. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So and then another thing would be then, well, when you say to see that is, or what's triggering it, or what it.
What's the question?
How do you see that without do you see it by awareness, or
Just give me a question. Don't give me, I don't want options, not multiple choice. One question, one answer.
How would you see that without being adding on? How would that?
Okay, I'm ready to answer you. The way you see it is to look at it and see the way you add on. If you see the way you keep adding on, if you see something arises and you immediately add things onto it, ideas, opinions, judgments, hopes, fears, whatever, all you have to do is continue to look at that for that to start to slow down. But you can't add on to the adding. When I say you can't, of course you can do whatever you want to do. But if you're trying to understand what I'm saying stop trying to improve and try to see what is actually happening. And then if there's a possibility of decreasing the suffering or taking some of the fuel away, it'll be obvious to you what to do. But if you jump in and try to wrestle with things that you don't understand, it just gets worse. It gets circular. It's like running around on a merry-go-round, and trying to figure out how do you get off from this thing. You keep looking for a doorway, and there isn't any doorway to it. There's just one little bench and a couple of horses, and then a couple of dolphins. What else do they have on merry-go-rounds? Dolphins, giraffes, huh? Lions.
Unicorns.
Unicorns, have unicorns.
Mice.
So we keep, huh?
Mice.
Have really, really big mice. We keep jumping from one thing, and then we think, no, I'm pretty old. I should just sit on a bench with the adults. No, I'm going to get back on a giraffe. Maybe that'll work. We keep kind of switching things, and it just goes around and around and around. And the person who sees what this is, they just get off. There's no fanfare. They just see, well, that's a big circle. These people are in a merry-go-round, and there's no fanfare. There's not. They don't even have to step off. They're just not on it anymore. They're standing there watching people go round and around and around and around. And every time somebody goes around and say, what do I do now? Anybody ever seen Jacob's Ladder, the movie? Remember how that face looks looking out the back window of the car? You should watch that movie. A completely frightening movie. Yes.
Question from Sokuzan up in Traverse City.
I know her.
Oops.
That Mac Optimizer 50% discount is back up again. This is a Mac. Should this be happening on a Mac?
Skynet.
What?
Skynet's taking over.
Skynet?
From Terminator.
Oh,
Are you ready for the question?
really? Yes, I'm ready for Sokuzan's question.
Sokuzan asks, the third noble truth is often described as the goal of relief. Is that different from the relief you are talking about? And if so, how?
I mentioned relief. What did I say?
You said, please don't look for relief,
Yeah.
look for the truth.
Yeah, don't look for relief. Yes, it's the relief that comes with the third noble truth comes from all that is saying there's a possibility this can come to an end. But if you want it to come to an end, you can't just go to the third. That's just to let you know that what's coming here. The cause of suffering, desire. The cause of cessation, Shila Samadhi and Prajna. Or sit down, hold still, and look at it. Shila, discipline. Samadhi, look at it. What's the last one? Prajna. Wisdom, see what's true. It sounds very easy. It's that people spend their whole life doing this. And some people succeed. Did I answer your question?
I guess we'll see.
I guess we'll find out. Question? You should have. All of you. Especially you people that live here should have questions. And if you don't, then what do I usually say?
Why not?
Then why not? Any questions at all? We have about 7 or 8 minutes to go.
I mean, it just sounds to me like it's a choice to see the bare, rigid, objective truth, not let anything get away. I know I've had like a lot of life events, and you do want to respond, but I appreciate hearing this because I know this stuff back now, so I can actually see the situation for what it is. So I mean, I guess I don't know how I'm leading into a question. To me, it's disturbing that people can live a subjective lifestyle, and if that's how they live, to them that's reality. But when you see what's objective, you can see that things that are subjective are reality. So I mean, I personally want to live in the real world. I don't want to live in a subjective world. It's just disturbing to me. So to me, it's the right way to live. It's just making a choice to make the right way to live, to know truth.
Is that your question? Is it a
Pretty
choice?
much. It's pretty much as being objective for the most part more advantageous than being subjective.
Well, those are concepts that have some accuracy to them, subjective, objective. But I think the thing that seems to be important, to be as direct as I can to respond to your question, is to try to see through their sense fields, including the mind, see very clearly what happens right away before it gets convoluted and turned around and added on to the opinions and ideas, and our own hope and fear. And one of the ways that you can do this is to train your mind to see very clearly in a very, very simple, almost sterile situation of a cushion and a wall and all your sense fields open and you're just looking. You hear birds outside, you hear someone walking behind you going to another cushion. You may even hear the candle pop or something. If someone's sitting close to you, you might hear them breathing. Very, very, very simple to train our mind to come right down to the simplest possible situation to train the mind so that we can train to see clearly. So when we get back off the cushion, we're actually, there's a better chance of us seeing exactly what's occurring minus our presumptions, our preconceptions, our projections onto it.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think, when I say I don't think, as soon as I say that, I think, well, I don't really know for sure. I can't live everyone's life, but it looks like from looking at my own situation for the last 75 years, that what I'm doing is presuming to sit up here and teach anybody anything would not be able to do this at all had I not sat down for long periods of time and looked at who it was that was even thinking, who it was that was feeling, who it was and what it was that was dreaming things up, and see that was unreal. Unreal. So what I'm saying to you, basically, going a little bit different direction with it, I'm saying you can't really walk out of here with concepts about it and figure this out. I'm not saying you can't become a philosopher, even write books. Some people are extremely gifted at coming up with all kinds of wonderfully creative ideas about the nature of the mind, the nature of the world, how you should live your life, what's the best way, how to have a relationship. And we have all kinds of, the therapies are just full of ideas. There's Arthur Janov's primal screen therapy. There's I'm okay, you're okay therapy. There's so many ways of working with the mind that have some creativity to them and actually help us access some of the craziness of the mind. But the only thing that seems to really be a spiritual path, in other words, so you can really, really see what is fundamentally true for yourself without a belief system going on, is some kind of really powerful awareness practice. That's why I teach this. So not to take anything away from what you're saying. What you're saying is, philosophically is interesting, but it's just that the philosophy, the part of the mind that actually generates all this information, all this thinking and everything, tends to believe that some things are real and some things are unreal. And the mind that is aware, or one's Buddha nature, when you discover your Buddha nature, your awakened nature, this transcends life and death. You actually see that your body being alive or dead makes no difference. Some difference, but not fundamentally. It doesn't make a difference. That you can die. It's kind of something like knowing it's okay to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Just like we go to sleep every night, and no one necessarily thinks, "What if I never wake up?" It might happen once in a while. Not often. Usually we go right to sleep, and the chances of you waking up are not all that great. Yes.
Another question from Kozan and then one from Gyokudo.
Yes, goes on.
Kozan asks, can not adding be seen?
Well, sure.
That's it.
Somebody saw it. I don't know if she did or not. I just wonder if she's chuckling or not.
Gyokido's question from
Yes.
Minneapolis. Actually, there are two. Is looking for how you might be adding, also adding?
I think that goes through several different turnstiles. You know, I think it's very uniquely different for each person because of our styles. We have passion, aggression, ignorance. Some people are more passionate. Some people are more ignoring. Some people are more aggressive. Some people are more. Their style is much more conceptual. Another person is very low on the conceptual area. Is very much about emotions. More.
She's asked, something arises and I wonder.
Gyokido.
Yeah, Gyokido. Something arises and I wonder about it. Is this adding?
Not particularly. It could be. Look at the intention there. If they're just wondering about it, like if you're just to make something up. If I'm sitting here in the hojo or out in the garden or sitting in the car, waiting for a light to change, and I have maybe a negative thought or some kind of memory comes over my mind screen. I might add on something about, well, like, that's interesting. I wonder where that came from. So I don't think, a little bit of that is, we're not trying to turn ourselves into some kind of I never think of anything extra ever. If I do, I hope the powers that be strike me down. I'm not trying to be some kind of robot-like person that never has any emotions or feelings, but always just sees colors, sees shapes. So yeah, a little bit, but that's why Buddhism is often called the middle way. Not too tight, not too loose. A little bit of let the line out a little bit, but then not too far. A little bit of tension on something. To actually do that is to be in balance. If you think there's something to do besides what you're doing, then you're going to be always looking for something else, trying to find some other way to get something to occur or not occur. Trying to stop one thing and start another thing. More? Yeah. Kevin.
Is sleeping just a concept?
What?
Sleep. Do we sleep? Is it another concept like?
What's today?
Nothing's.
What is today? Okay. 39 years ago, today, I was in a month-long solitary retreat. And about 2 weeks into it, I woke up. I slept that night. And I woke up, and the first thing that came into my mind was, nothing sleeps. Does that answer your question? It's interesting you asked that on today. Nothing sleeps. Nothing sleeps. Okay, now go ahead.
Can we practice awareness when we're sleeping?
Yes. Very good question. Yeah. It's happening all the time. It's happening all the time. There's no solid being anywhere. There's a discontinuous identity happening all the time. This is kind of a luxury to be here in a physical form. Or maybe it's what's that other thing other than luxury? What's the opposite of luxury? Come on, you guys. Bad. Yeah. It's a jinx, is that it?
Necessity.
A burden. I like
Burden. Yeah. Burden. A hand is worth 2 birds.
Burden.
Burdens.
What's a burden? What's the opposite of luxury?
The burden.
Necessity.
Burden a hand.
No, but what you're going for, what you're trying to say. I don't either.
So, but to respond to your question, it's a good question. The whole idea of sleep is something that whole idea. Have you noticed how right when we fall asleep, there's kind of what they call kind of a twilight zone right there, where things get very they're very solid and they're very vague at the same time. They're real and they're unreal at the same time. It's a very interesting area that's just before we fall asleep.
Is there a difference between sleeping state and waking state?
I think just the difference that we all think of is being I'm awake, and when I sleep, this whole world here disappears, and then another world arises.
And isn't that just commentary on a concept that we use in our minds?
Could be. But fundamentally, nothing sleeps. That's a better thing to contemplate.
Is there a way in which we can cultivate awareness during sleep? Because we can't sit on the cushion.
I feel that there are ways to do that, but I think it would be different with each person. There are ways there's practices you've probably heard of. Lucid dreaming is one of them. The practice you can actually work on. There's also trying to move the consciousness or projection of the astral body or out of body experiences that some people have spontaneously, other people are just able to do. There's lots of writing done on that. And that even in the Tibetan form, one of the 6 yogas of Naropa is a projection of consciousness. I think it's called. Which one is that? Do you remember? Is it Poa or is that the heat one? Anyway, there's 6 different yogas that were taught back, way a long time ago, where there was a way of ejecting consciousness out of the body. So there's all kinds of things that could be done that you could work with. But the most important thing, the way it looks here, from having done a few of those things, is to hold very still and see what moves. In this form, sit down, see what moves, watch what continues to move. When you can hold everything as still as possible, to watch what continues to move seems to be a very powerful way of strengthening the awareness around what is real, what is actually real, what is real, and what is not real. What is not real is that which comes and goes. What is real does not do anything. It is real in that it doesn't appear, therefore it can't disappear. And that has to be realized. It can't be just a concept. Otherwise, we're just trading concepts, and then we go from that. We go into different philosophies and who thought what, who thinks what. You're excused if you need to go. You don't feel good. Any other questions? We're over time. Okay, very good. I would dedicate them. Huh?
Dedicate them.
We'll dedicate them. Yeah. Thank you. Guess I won't need that.
In the back of your red books is the dedication merit. Also encourage you to donate in the hallway or online. For those of you who are listening in, we happily take your donations. May the merit of this penetrate into all places, so that we and every sentient being together can realize the Buddha's way. Jivo Sanji Jisong Samoko the 10 directions of the 3 worlds, all Buddhas, all venerable ones,
Bodhisattvas, Mahattattvas, the great Prajna Paramita.
O Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions and the 3 times, please hear us. Please come down out of the light and protect Sokoji Buddhist Temple Monastery, its buildings, garden, and all adjoining areas from any and all dark or negative energy. Remove and dissolve any negative energy or devices. Fill everything and everyone with light. Please shield and protect with light our teachers, monks, students, and all practitioners of the Dharma, our families and friends from negative forces and energy from now on. Help us to realize the truth of the Buddha's teachings.